Safari wouldn't work. So
It's all right. Cool. So welcome, Jason. My name's welcome everybody. My name's Anthony with Coaching Funnels. Today I have on one of our clients. So I think this is the first in a series of, I had this idea last week of just kind of sitting back and just hanging out with one of our clients and kind of getting to know them and like who they are. Not this faux case study where it's like, hey, like, look at us, we're so great. I just want to spotlight the coach. And, I was texting Jason and I was like, maybe I just change this into coffee with a coach where we just kick back and talk. So I just want to welcome on to this new series. It's not titled this and this, but this is Coffee with the Coach. Just changed that a few minutes ago. And, Jason's a coach himself, but also an instructor and has been behind the wheel of a race car for like 20 years. I'll let him introduce himself and all that. But yeah, this is Coffee with the Coach. And today we're just going to kind of learn more about Jason, talk about cars. I come from a family of gearheads, but we'll talk about that and stuff like that. So we can just shoot the shit and go from there, man. Welcome, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Already finished my coffee, but I'm ready to go. So
I'm tapering off coffee down. I've had a 10-year plus habit of like two venti iced coffees a day. So that's like each one 235 milligrams. So I've been getting some I don't know if it's heartburn or something going on. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can bring this down or pull it out and see what happens. So
yeah, it's all about balance, right? I try to keep it to one a day if possible, but
yeah, I'm doing a grande, which is only 165. So we will see from there how that goes, man. Well, let's I know you got a YouTube channel. You started that recently. We met because I was supporting you and starting your coaching business and stuff. Just kind of tell me give us the background of who you are, what you're up to and all that.
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Jason Cocking. I'm a motorsports performance coach, and I'm an instructor in car at one of the coolest racing schools on the planet. I feel very fortunate to have it kind of right here in my backyard. We're still able to be close to both of our families and really do what I love, which really kind of led me right into motorsports coaching because I really enjoy the one-on-one with people, and whether it's specifically in the car or in this sense, in a competitive nature, it's really fun to see somebody grow and really help them get faster, especially when it's not necessarily just the driving aspect of it. So that's been a lot of fun, and that's something I've learned and grown with myself. And like you alluded to, started doing some video stuff on my own as well to kind of grow my reach and give myself a little bit more credibility because I enjoy doing the video stuff as well. I'm not sure how much of you've seen, but it's been a fun part of it as well, kind of tying that into the coaching. And our seasons are all kind of getting wrapped up. I actually was down in California last weekend, got to watch one of my clients run the second to last race of the season, and they ended up finishing second in the points championship in one of the most competitive classes. So that was pretty cool. And been in negotiations with the boss for us to get one of those race cars as well. So that's kind of where we're headed for next year, and that's the plan for right now. And just enjoying the process, really.
Cool. Let's tell me more like the difference between you're instructing and you're coaching, because it seems so similar, and what's the difference, and then I can have a follow-up with there. It was why go down those paths, both those paths?
Yeah, instructing, is kind of my 9 to 5, and that's specifically in car, where I'm sitting in the passenger seat with somebody, or I give them a demonstration, and then we're mic'd up and I can talk them through stuff. I can help them with the finesse, where to look, how much gas, how much brake, all that good stuff, really real time. Whereas on my coaching side of it, it's more about kind of the back end performance, how to be more prepared, how to be focused and have the right approach to competition. So it's really more of the base level back end of competing as opposed to just having the skills. So that's really kind of the difference. Is one is competitive, competition based, and their approach to performance, whereas my instruction is really in car, how to drive these things, how to slide a rally car around.
Okay.
I've been racing for 25 years on dirt, so sliding cars around is pretty second nature to me by this point.
Yeah. So very cool. So it's simply like more tactical versus like the mental. I know when we were talking about working with your program, coaching program, you know, it was really like, hey, how do you like kind of build this, you know, and apply that to your racing career and stuff like that. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a huge believer in the mental aspect of any sort of thing, whether it's something you like to do, something you're doing professionally, you know, every day showing up to work. If you have the right attitude and approach, I think you're going to be a lot more successful. And I think especially in something as intense as motorsports, being wheel to wheel or flying 120 miles an hour down a dirt road past trees or whatever you're racing, regardless, I think being in the right mind space and using that as the base of how you approach performance, I think is a huge game changer for a lot of people. And that's honestly what I didn't have in my bag back when I was racing, because I just didn't know any better. And that was something I was never taught, never worked on, never understood. And it really was something I learned later on, especially as I became an instructor. So that was something really cool for me and something I've really implemented in everything that I do. And I've seen improvements in everything that I do competitively, which whether it's golf or RC cars or full-blown race cars, whatever it is, I think I'm better off because of a strong mental approach.
Yeah. So like what struggles did you come across when you're like didn't have that coaching? You know, like you 20 years in, you know, 20 years of that, obviously you had to learn as you go. You know, I know that you see the opportunity of helping other drivers, but like what was the challenges? Like what'd you face, you know, specifically?
I mean, the biggest challenge is lack of focus and being goal oriented.
Yeah.
Was a big one, right? One of the big things that sticks out in my mind is the last year we were racing. My primary goal was just to get the car back up and running because that car was expensive to run. It cost us a lot of money to put a motor back together. And once I accomplished that goal, I never really made the next goal to perform in that car. So I left a lot on the table. And that kind of lack of focus and having goals and being driven and then pushing yourself towards them, I think is a big one for a lot of people. You know, they kind of get to a plateau and don't figure out what the next step is to take it further.
Yeah. So that was kind of like my question, like kind of wondering, like we all know goals in the sense of, you know, fitness, right? Personal goals of that, you know, fitness goals, things like that. So like, what is goal setting? Obviously, besides just winning the championship, like what does that look like for, you know, a driver if you're helping them set goals?
Well, it's all dependent on where they're sitting and what they want to accomplish, right? A brand new driver, one of the guys that I worked with this year just completed his first full-blown stage rally, which is a huge accomplishment. It's a big 5-day event, 3 full days of driving. And he came from a tech background, knowing nothing about motorsports, being scared of going fast, to finishing a full-blown stage rally, which is a huge accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
Whereas another guy I was working with, our goal was to win the championship. He got second, but he was definitely in a position to go out and chase the championship. So our goals were a little bit different for him.
Okay.
And I think a big part of it is setting smaller goals along the way to improve stuff, you know, whether it be making the car better, having better fitness so you're more prepared mentally, and all that little stuff that really adds up to accomplishing your goals and having success.
Yeah. So how long, like, I mean, are you coaching like just people in the dirt, or does it cross over?
It definitely crosses over. I'm working with rally guys. I'm working with off-road guys.
Okay.
Got one dirt oval guy, which is kind of near and dear to me because that's a lot of what I did, but I have roots in off-road stuff as well. So I definitely prefer dirt stuff. I think that's the better racing, the more fun to drive.
Yeah.
But pavement stuff is definitely fun as well. So.
And when you say rally, is that on like what is that? Like we're gearheads from like my my dad, my family were all like in the auto industry, and then my dad was pretty big, and all my cousins were into muscle cars, into the Fox body Mustangs, and having speed shop, dyno shop for that. So when we talk cars, we're talking about like drag cars, right? Either street drag cars or anything like that. That's our passion. So like, the dirt, the other things are a little outside of our, our family history. But, my dad was drag racing at Lions Drag Show. I don't know if you ever heard of that. He used to talk about, now it's like, it's in Carson, California. And now there's like a big refinery next to it. And we used to drive down the freeway, and he used to see that row of lights. That used to be like, you could barely see it anymore. But he's like, that used to be Lions drag strip, and, all the crazy stuff he did. But so like, this rally, what is that? Cause I kind of know, but I don't, right?
Yeah. Rally is really unique. It's typically a timed race. The cars are supposed to be, or they have to be production based, because the cars have to be street legal. Okay. So it can definitely be different than your one-off tube chassis race car. Most of the stuff that I drove and raced was specifically performance-based race cars. The sprint cars, we can sneak up here. I drove these silly things.
Good. I went up to Modesto. I think it was either Modesto. Is that California?
Yeah, Modesto.
So we had a family reunion, and they had that little dirt rally. I know what you're talking about now. Like little thing, know?
Dirt oval cars.
Yeah, that was really cool to watch. And then kind of funny story too is that my dad used to race. He raced for a bit, like the Circle 8, right? And he had like, it was like, I guess it had no like transmission, or it had a compression release. So I don't know exactly if that was like a single gear or whatever, but like he crashed one time, went blind on it like for a few hours, dude, doing that. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so that's rally.
Racing serious stuff. Rally's cool. This thing is actually a single gear car. So you lock that thing in gear and they push you off of the truck. And those things are pretty wild. That thing had about 725 horsepower, and the car only weighs 13. Yeah. So they're pretty wild. But rally's pretty wild in its own right, because they're essentially public roads that are closed. You race over stages, and it's the best time wins. You're not necessarily racing side to side with anybody unless somebody has a flat or a mechanical and you got to pass them. But it's typically not wheel to wheel. It can definitely be more dangerous because you're out in the middle of nowhere, and there can be cliffs and trees and anything you can hit. So the consequence and kind of the intensity comes from the surroundings and the speed. Because, I mean, they're going, if you watch the on-car videos, what we do at DirtFish is pretty much second and third gear stuff. We had students in advanced class yesterday. We were probably going 75. But when you watch the on-car stuff of the like team drivers, those guys are in fourth, fifth, sixth gear pretty regularly. So they're going 120, 130 miles an hour like it's nothing. So
that's crazy. So there's a lot of like the all-wheel drive, WRX type of.
Predominantly all-wheel drive stuff is the go-to rally car. Like all the WRC stuff back in Europe is all-wheel drive stuff. But they have classes for every car. There's front-wheel cars, rear-wheel cars. So there's definitely two-wheel drives involved. But the primary like open class is typically all-wheel drive.
That's very cool. And then what other kind of classes are you coaching? Like different car racing?
Different dirt oval car. I got a midget guy, basically a smaller version of this thing with a smaller motor, and then off-road guy. So if you know what like the UTVs or the side-by-sides are that have been pretty popular in the last few years, basically a version of those with a pull-on race cage in it and all the safety stuff built to race. Those things are pretty fun. That's actually what we're thinking about buying, is one of those things. So.
Very cool. So how's like engine technology changed? Like, cause like now we're seeing these like Hellcats and all this other stuff that are just like, it's almost like horsepower inflation. I've been meaning to like, I haven't talked to anybody about this. I'm like, like 700 horsepower now is like, oh, okay, you got these like trucks, you know, like the TRX, and you know, this with like this much horsepower. And I, you know, in '03, I bought the '03 Cobra, you know, and that was like the car to buy that year for like, you know, like a budget muscle car, right? Not like a super car, right? But it's like that was 390 at the flywheel, right? Detuned, where we went you know, with just my cousin had the dyno shop with the tuning and all that stuff. So he tuned it, you know, we tuned it without any filter, any changes, just a tune, and went to like 390 the wheels, right? And then we're like, yeah, it was so cool. And then we obviously threw a throttle body and a little bit of exhaust and all that stuff, and it was putting down like 460 the wheels at that time. And we're like, that was so fast. But like now, like, you know, has that technology changed for you? You know, with all, is that influencing the racing technology now?
I mean, there's always progression, right? Just like you say, 390, 500 horsepower isn't really a big number anymore. I mean, even production cars are pushing 700 horsepower. I'm actually curious what like the Tesla motors actually put out in terms of horsepower. And I think motorsports is kind of at a crossroad with the electric stuff. Like one of the series that I follow is introducing an electric car, and I'm curious how it's going to work out because I think it's going to be boring personally because they don't make any noise. So,
yeah, I've seen one of those the plaids try to get dynoed on that, and it was just because it's all-wheel drive. It's kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because like I mean it's super impressive, and it like. It get with this new technology, especially like traction and all that stuff, like it makes like these guys that wouldn't be able to drive like a set the flat out thing, like a old muscle car at 700 horsepower and a new car at 700 horsepower is a completely different experience.
Oh yeah,
like the guys
that have to drive, the other one drives for you.
Yeah, the guys that drive the 700 horsepower Hellcat versus like a 700 horsepower like Chevelle, like 66 Chevelle.
Oh,
like, good luck, man, because that's a different car.
Oh, yeah.
Different experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we see it all the time. It's especially in pavement stuff, road course stuff, where they have traction control and paddle shifters and all that stuff. Essentially, the amount of driving that you're actually doing is going down and down and down, right?
Yeah.
I had a guy in car, this was a few months ago, but he told me he had to sell his Corvette because it kept trying to kill him. But his GTR, he's a hero in that car because it's all-wheel drive with traction control, all that stuff. And like a buddy of mine has been through turn one at the track up here at 170 with a student. So he was in the passenger seat going 170 through turn one.
Yeah.
Which is way too fast. Way too fast to let somebody else drive with you. So.
And that's on dirt, right? Like, so
no, that's pavement. That's pavement.
I was like, dude, that's on dirt. That's like that. Like it's kind of like going in a boat. Like right, you're going 70 in a boat feels like 120 in a car. Right?
Oh yeah.
So
and same thing with what I do at DirtFish. I mean, 60 miles an hour feels like 120 because you're sideways on the gravel. So most people aren't really prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, like talk about the difference in driving technology, right? That '03 Cobra, like a couple years later, at the same time, I went and got an E55 AMG, right? Mm-hmm. And me and my buddy, I gave him the AMG, and we were like trying to drag race the two. And I don't know if you know that the '03 Cobra did not hook. It had this wheel hop because it was their first year of the IRS, like independent rear suspension. So like you couldn't drop the clutch on that because they just broke those half shafts and stuff. So like we lined up and tried to go, and that car, he didn't have to do anything. He just had to step on the gas. And the cool thing that you saw about that technology, you saw in where the Cobra, because we turned off traction control, but in the Cobra, it would just pull timing. So it would fall on its face and then jump back in and fall on its face. And that's how it could control the traction. Where the E55 you would launch it and you would feel it walk because it would just shut it. Like there's a clutch in the wheel. Then it would just shut power off, and then it would just, and then it would hook. Right. So, like he was able to to the wheels, like, I mean, they were, technically a faster car. I think it was I think the flywheel horsepower on the E55 was like 450 or 455 or something like that. So at the time we had 460, so we're at 555, around 550 in the Cobra, just on that. But from a rolling start, there was nothing that could, like, that Cobra just pulled on it pretty hard. So yeah, he had no experience driving, and I'm trying to fucking feather the clutch and stuff and like take off. So like, yeah, but yeah, definitely.
Goes a long way. There was actually a series. The series has since folded, but the Volkswagen cars were doing something really similar to that, and their techs would stay overnight and do homework on the cars, and essentially on the launches, because it was a standing start. Everybody thinks, and don't quote me on this, but that they were basically figuring out how to arrest the motor and not let it fire, basically to work as a little bit of traction control to get the launch a little bit better. So, and they were pretty dominant. So,
well, it seems like that's what they're doing. Like, I watched a lot. I love drag racing, right? But I watched Street Outlaw, like what it was, Street Outlaw, and it seems like that's the tune, that's the type of tuning that they're doing. Like completely, like, they've got all this technology that can read these, even the older, the older style motors, even though they got, it's not like, right, I don't know, like, it seems like they're able to read all the programming, and they've got sensors and stuff where, when you got a carburetor and just positive traction.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest change is the ECUs, what they can do with the computers in the car, because I mean they're full-blown computers now, whereas like you're talking about with mechanical carburation or mechanical fuel injection, whatever's in there is probably not quite as efficient as electronic stuff. So that's a big game changer in the motor department. I'm not big into drag racing stuff, but I will say there is nothing like seeing a Top Fuel car go down the racetrack. And I've been lucky enough at DirtFish, because I was kind of one of the two guys that was into Top Fuel. We had Steve Torrance and Antron Brown come up in 2018, I believe. And Steve just won his 4th championship in a row in the dragsters. So that's pretty cool to see that stuff.
Very cool. So you started this YouTube channel, man. Like,
yeah,
tell me about that. Like, I saw a little clip. I've got to watch some more clips. You got it raining in the backyard. You've got a track in your backyard. Is that right? We've
got 5 tracks at my house already.
How many acres you got? Like, how big is your property?
We've got 6.5 acres.
Oh, wow.
And I always wanted property because I'm kind of a big kid. So if I'm not driving race cars at work, we've got 3 RC car tracks. They're all kind of different for different size cars. And then we got a quad track for me and the kids. And then I got a pit bike track for my little motorcycle too. So just stuff to play with, and really that's kind of part of the YouTube stuff too, is if I'm not in a race car, I'm typically doing something else that goes fast or building something to have fun on. So I'm going to do it anyways. It's cool to share it and potentially get more traction with my coaching and have the potential for multiple streams of income. So it's kind of a win-win with stuff that I'm already doing and I enjoy.
No, YouTube's huge. Like we talked, I saw you started doing that, and in the last like few months, like I've been really, a few years ago, I was all about podcasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's great and everything, but like lately, I've been watching a lot of driving and listening to YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's just easier to find other videos versus a podcast. Like podcasts, you just go straight to the same podcast all the time, right? I really think it's a great platform. Like I've seen a guy that talks about, like fitness, but maybe he's really big into talking about like performance enhancing drugs and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's got his own lab, TRT clinic. He's got his own supplement line and stuff. And I'm like, dude, this totally makes sense. And it's about like what's really, no matter what business you're in, like controlling. We have a great opportunity with social media, YouTube, all this stuff to control, to have these little communities where, before, right, going on the news wasn't big networks wasn't a thing, right? So you can get a following for what you do. And obviously with YouTube, the monetization of YouTube can build a piece of real estate on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and I think it's a great organic way to kind of share my messages, grow organically. I think it's a great platform, and it really ties into everything well. It's really interesting the world we live in as far as like especially racing stuff. People that are looking for sponsors, it's amazing how a social media following is so impactful, right? And what companies will pay a influencer or somebody with a following to push their product or wear their t-shirt or have their logo on their stuff. So that stuff's interesting. And like I said, I enjoy doing it. So I think it's cool to share that. And I think I have a little bit of talent for it. So it's fun to do.
Yeah, super cool. Like, what are some of your favorite videos you've done so far?
I got one that hasn't had a ton of views, but I gave a guy a thrill ride at DirtFish, and it was a really good ride, but he was kind of squealing like a teenage girl within about 5 seconds, so that was pretty comical. That's a good one. I really like the time-lapse stuff of kind of showing how I build the tracks and work on the tracks and stuff. I got one, probably the one you saw the start of where it's raining really hard, where I changed some of the stuff around and I painted some lines and put some lights up on my track that's down here. So it gets dark at 4:45 now. I threw up about 5-6 LEDs on the track. So I think Tuesday night we were out there till about 10:30. So
nice.
Yeah.
And how many kids you got? Because like this is gonna be like awesome for them to grow up in, man.
Oh yeah, they're spoiled. We got an almost 6-year-old. He'll be 6 in 4 weeks. He's already got a race car and he rips around here on his little 50cc quad like a maniac. Makes me nervous as hell. And then we have a 19 or 20-month-old, and I think he's going to be twice as crazy. He loves riding the quads with me. He'll just sit in my lap and kind of relax down. We can ride around wherever. He's falling off of stuff, climbing on my 5-year-old's bunk beds. So yeah, he's gonna be wild. So yeah,
very cool. So like with your coaching and all that, like what, like who would be a good person to, that works with you? Is it someone who's, at what point in their career, like who's your ideal, like, like person to coach?
I think somebody with a little bit of untapped potential, somebody that definitely has talent, but doesn't know how to take it kind of to the next level and get themselves more competitive. And really the reason I say that is because I was kind of in that position 4 or 5 years ago where I had fallen into a rut. I was fast all the time, but I wasn't finishing very well because I wasn't consistent. I didn't have a good mental approach. I wasn't as prepared as I needed to be. So somebody that's, struggling to get out of that top 5, top 10 range and start winning some races and try to go after a championship. I think that's kind of my sweet spot as far as making somebody better, kind of refining their skills a little bit, giving them some stuff to work on, but ultimately building that mental approach.
Okay. So like what would like someone in that position, like what's your ultimate goal? Where are you taking them?
I mean, ultimate goal is always the top, right? The real goal I think is just to help somebody improve and give them more confidence, more skills, maybe give them something that they didn't have just because of my experience being around motorsports and what I get to do 4 or 5 days a week instructing and stuff, that I see inside the car that maybe they don't even think about. I think a big thing in motorsports is so many people are self-taught, so they don't have a professional coach. They've never gotten some really solid input as far as what they're doing, what they could change. Some of them have, but because a lot of them are self-taught, there's little fundamental things that they can work on. And I think 90% of the people out there don't even think about mental approach. So they're leaving a lot of potential on the table just based on that, because I think the mental is so important.
Okay. Very cool. Well, cool. So wrapping up, how can we get a hold of you? I know that you have some type of download that you've used in the past, right?
Yeah, I got my
drivers to get for anybody kind of curious about how you can help somebody as a coach.
Yeah, and you can get that stuff on my website. So it's just jasoncocking.com. I got info on me, info on working with me and some of the motorsports stuff. So you can download that fundamentals of motorsports performance there. And you can connect with me through there with my calendar and all that stuff as well. So that's probably the best place. And then any form of social media or my email. So, and that's just jason@jasoncocking.com. So.
Yeah, I've put, a couple of your links in the description and stuff like that. So, your YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, so website. So if you want to get a hold of Jason, you just go to there. So will we see you in the electric dirt racing car soon or what?
I sure hope not, to be really honest with you. I think if motorsports really tries to go that direction, I think it's the death of motorsports, but that's just me personally. I know there's a lot of people that think it's cool, but a big part of why seeing motorsports live is exciting is the sensory overload of the sound of the cars, right? And that's why I love Top Fuel dragsters. That's why I love wing sprint cars, because they're so loud. If they're quiet when they go by, it looks boring. I mean, Formula E is one of the most boring things to watch. Travis Pastrana's new series is launching an electric car. I'm curious to see. I mean, I know it's going to be fast, but I don't think it's going to be that exciting to watch because it's not going to make all the noise. So
yeah, I would just hope it all would come together, right? It wouldn't kill one or anything like that,
Yeah.
Because you heard that. Have you heard that Tesla semi truck accelerate?
No.
Yeah, there's some big. I mean, so there is some pretty big, on the, something that powerful, right? Although they have a crazy amount of torque, it does have trust me. I love an old school muscle car sound all day long. But yeah, it is kind of it was pretty loud, right? Relatively. So it'd be interesting. But you know what they always say, there's no replacement for displacement, because I saw an old Buick with these big tall wheels, right? To take down one of those, you're that Buick looks just like a lowrider, right? And it took out a Plaid, dude. It was you could see these cars getting caught at the top end, the Plaids and stuff. So
it was. My father-in-law has a couple of them, and it's amazing to me when you're at 80 miles an hour and you grab the throttle, how aggressively it will accelerate at 80 miles an hour.
Which one?
So, that's just the Model Y, the mid-size SUV, I think.
Yeah.
That's the only one I've driven. I couldn't imagine how much torque the insane mode coupes have.
Well, they just have that advantage of that all-wheel drive, right?
Yeah.
I know we're going beyond or signing off, but I love it was my dad chased me away from the motorsports and cars and stuff, but we used to go street racing, and one of the guys who was in our friends group, right, with my cousins, they had a WRX, not even an STI. They might have turned up the turbo a little bit, but they had I don't know, 350 shot. I don't know how big of a shot of nitrous on it, but it would leave right? All-wheel drive, and it would just, the way it launched was impressive, right?
Yeah.
I'm used to like seeing a rear-wheel drive car squat and go, right? And this thing would just go bam and like, just like jump. So they would peg it and pop the clutch, and the thing would just launch. So it was pretty cool. So
yeah, all-wheel drive's cheating. We tell people all the time at DirtFish, the all-wheel drive cars are easier because of all the traction. The rear-wheel drive car, you got to finesse quite a bit more. I'm a rear-wheel drive guy myself.
In that car, the back's rear-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, those things are wild. There's not much room in the cockpit. You lock the car in gear, and the driveline comes in between your legs in the cockpit.
Yeah.
You got a wing slider. It's kind of your only adjustment, so you can pull the wing all the way back as it runs low of fuel.
Yeah.
Because that thing will go through 23, 24, 25 gallons in 25 laps. You're talking quarter to half mile track. So they eat fuel.
a gallon a lap, dude.
They're
crazy, dude.
Yeah, those things are fast. They're fun. So
very cool. Very cool. Well, awesome, man. Appreciate you being on. Thanks for everything that, working with us, and looking forward to supporting you in your future endeavors and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Appreciate you, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, Campo. See you next time.